4.5 weeks. 4.5 weeks have passed. Commissioner Shelly Seymour, Department 7, Family Law Division, Merced County, Superior Court of California, since you coerced me to put the lives of my children in danger, for what you told me was their best interest in contradiction to the facts of this current reality. Because of your abuse of discretion, 22 days out of 33 my little ones have been subjected to the exposure of possible infection by the military-grade bioengineered viral weapon unleashed upon humanity, or one of its deadly variants, due to an irrational forced socialization in your beloved publicly administered institutions and the demographic therein. Have you been sleeping well? Is your pillow soft because of all that you have done to provide for the best interest of my children by keeping them alienated from the one person on earth who actually cares about them as human beings? Are you satisfied with your arbitrary decision to coerce my children to return to your beloved publicly administered institutions of traditional, which is to say compulsory, education because you are so certain it is in their best interest, despite allowing any argument from me otherwise? Would you be interested in taking an objective look at your progress report, Commissioner, based on the actual current reality and not the one that exists only in your head? Before we explore the horror you have brought down upon me and my two children when you tapped your little wooden hammer on Friday the 13th, I'd like to take a moment and objectively consider whether there exists the possibility that your choice could have been justified based on the facts of the case. The only thing that I asked you to grant me at the hearing was to put another date on the calendar, so that I may have the mediation that I was intended to have with the only one in Department 7 who has her head screwed on tight, namely Catherine J. Wakefield, LCSW. It took me years of court proceedings in Department 7 with absurdly farcical mediations with one after another of biased, inept, uncaring and ignorant agenda-pushing so-called mediators, such as Heather Grammatico, Ph.D., who behaved in a way similar to yourself, inasmuch as they refused to be swayed by the facts of the case, and so each time proceeded with assumptions that were not based in truth, and cared not at all about the actual safety, health, happiness, and well-being of my too much younger little ones, before my family had the good fortune of mediating with Wakefield. And those orders were right at the time, but it took me 2 years to get them and a lot has changed since they were drafted 3 years ago. I'm not sure you're aware, but ever since 2020 the entire planet has been locked down and paralyzed by the fear of death due to the viral military-grade bioweapon that was unleashed on humanity. One thing that happened is that this mythical place that you call traditional education, whatever that mental image is for you, does not exist. The traditional system collapsed from beneath my children's feet and made it necessary for me to register my own private home school to ensure that they could continue to have their social and educational needs met, rather than allow them to be harmed as collateral damage in the collapse of your broken traditional authoritarian slave indoctrination system. We were enjoying the freedom. We were excited about learning. We all began to feel like we had more control of our lives, now that we had escaped the compulsory oppressive tyranny of what you call traditional education. And Mom didn't seem to care if they were at Dad's house for 10 days or 2 weeks, and they are always asking for more days, and I am always glad that we may. But what has borne out is that their true safety, health, happiness, and well-being is considered as a threat to their demented and emotionally abusive mother because it goes against her pathological juggernaut agenda of parental alienation at all costs. And so, when the public administrators of your beloved institutions decided to recklessly open the floodgates of compulsory attendance and forced socialization for the masses of children, she decided to leverage the school issue because it is the key to her power and control over the children and me. So, what is important to her? Forcing her children to return to the corrals of the abattoir because it ensures that she can keep custodial favoritism, claim them both on her taxes, justify child support, who knows what other benefits she might calculate. It is only a measure of her maintaining power and control over the lives of me and my children. That's what has borne out. I don't believe that you fully understand the dysfunction in her brain and, I agree, it is extraordinary. Her relentless pursuit of keeping the children and I separated physically and emotionally is the very abuse from which I came to you seeking sanctuary for my children and I. You wickedly betrayed my trust in your office and undermined my faith in your jurisprudence, when you offered this sick, demented abuser everything that she needed to continue subverting the safety, health, happiness, and well-being of both the children and myself for years to come. She is quite pleased and has been flexing her muscles of abusive power and control manipulation to the detriment of all but her for the past 33 days. Weighed against granting me the mediation that I had been on the calendar to have with Wakefield, so that CCRC could provide a valuable and useful recommendation that didn't recklessly place my children at greater risk for their lives and waste everybody's time, but instead more accurately reflected the actual truth of the facts of the case and therefore provided the best analysis of what may or may not be in the best interest of my children as human beings, what has borne out from your ill-informed ruling is a dark cloud of monstrous abuse hanging over the lives of the children and I, while you both play games with their lives and pat yourself on the back while doing it. Well done. So, let's see all that you've accomplished for the best interest of my children the past 33 days. Your wicked seeds have sprouted quickly, which only affirms my trepidation in your underhanded jurisprudence. Rather than grant me the mediation to which my family was due, you placed a priority on your own covert agenda and secret schemes and did not consider the best interest of my children based on the facts, as you are required to do by law. In so doing, you went against the recommendations of the CDC and other health officials who recommend self-isolation when possible, you know, because there's a vicious disease on every corner of the planet, and put your own outdated and arguably insane priority of forced socialization in its place. And then you told me to shut up if I didn't like it because it was in their best interest. Do you know more than the CDC? Or, are you deranged? So it is that my children are the ones who have had to bear out the untold physical endangerment and psychological trauma that is a direct result of the ignorant ineptitude and punitive inefficacies of the court in Department 7 and its accompanying office of CCRC. And my two children have predictably gotten infected with the flu virus, because that's what happens every September when you begin compulsorily busing masses of children together for traditional education and forced socialization. Only, there is no such thing as the common cold anymore. You have to prove it's not the vicious bioweapon unleashed on humanity first. Well, how do you do that? No problem. The FDA granted emergency use authorization for polymerase chain reaction, PCR, technology tests as a tool for diagnosis. Never mind that the results of this test are meaningless as a diagnostic tool. Never mind that the swabs are made of glass and aluminum silicon and are designed to leave aberrant fibers in the mucous membrane that separates your sinuses from your, what do they call that thing again? Oh, I remember. It's brain. That's right. Where was I? Never mind that these asbestos-like swabs are poisoned, oops. I mean, they're sterilized with a mutagenic solution that is known by the EPA since 2016 to be carcinogenic in humans. It's your only ticket out of quarantine. Want to spin the wheel? This test can only give irrational results, so it's a 50-50th chance you'll get either positive or negative whether or not you're actually infected with the military-grade bioengineered weapon they call the CoV-SARS-2 virus. As a direct result of your dirty work, Commissioner, my children and I have suffered an increase in the emotional abuses of parental alienation from my narcissistic co-parent, whose abuse you legitimized and are now guilty by proxy, for the last 33 days. In the last 33 days, as a direct result of your discretionary abuse, my children have gotten infected with the flu virus from the forced socialization in your beloved death camps of traditional education. Their selfish and abusive mother made the decision to secretly subject them to the horrors of PCR testing, rather than find a babysitter for 2 weeks of quarantine, rather than tell me and allow me to provide for their safe quarantine for 2 weeks. By the way, just a footnote here really, but the FDA withdrew the emergency use authorization, EUA, for PCR testing back in July because it is scientifically meaningless as a diagnostic tool, so basically the only thing it's good for is to give your kids brain cancer. Her top priority is maintaining power and control through abusive manipulations that serve her sick and pathological juggernaut agenda of parental alienation. And the wicked seeds that you have sown with your little wooden hammer on Friday the 13th have sprouted like weeds, and so much so that they are choking the life out of our garden. 1 whole day and 2 half days is all that our abusers, you and her, have allowed my children and I to spend together for the past 33 days. And, as I write to you now, I am suffering from the same bug that they picked up at your beloved institution. And it will be 19 more days before we can spend another day together. And there's no guarantee that the forced socialization that is in their best interests according to you, and contrary to the recommendation of health officials, will not predictably lead to another viral infection for my family. And you care not a bit for our lives. And the death blade swings wildly around us all. And you pat yourself on the back. And you sleep well on your soft pillow. And you are pleased with all you have done for the best interest of my children. And I must wonder whether you are actually mentally competent. And it is only a matter of time, Commissioner, before the weeds choking my garden are pulled out by the root. Time is not a friend to any of us. 33 days have passed. 22 out of 33 days my children have been forced by your hand to be exposed to infection by this diabolical weaponized virus. 22 days for 2 children brings your debt to 44 days out of 33 days. It's just a matter of time. 4.5 weeks.